Interestingly, the investigators went out of their way today to say on some of the conspiracy charges, while they believe they have compelling evidence about some of the participants in the conspiracy, including President Trump, they say they don't have evidence of all of the members of the conspiracy.
Former President Trump did not engage in a plan to defraud the United States acting alone. He entered into agreements, formal and informal, with several other individuals who assisted him with his criminal objectives. Our report describes in detail the actions of numerous co-conspirators who agreed with and participated in Trump's plan to impair, obstruct, and defeat the certification of President Biden's electoral victory. That said, the subcommittee does not attempt to determine all of the potential participants in this conspiracy, as our understanding of the role of many individuals may be incomplete even today because they refuse to answer our questions. We trust that the Department of Justice will be able to form a far more complete picture through its own investigation.
We do not attempt to determine all the potential participants in this conspiracy. We trust that the Department of Justice will be able to form a more complete picture through its investigation. Interesting, and not necessarily expected before today. Both in their written report and in today's proceedings, the investigators reiterated this. They think DOJ will be able to get more than they did, particularly from members of Congress who refused to comply with these subpoenas from this congressional investigation. But those people won't necessarily be able to blow off the Justice Department if they're served with grand jury subpoenas through the federal courts. This, for example, is on page 80 of the report that was released today, or the introduction to the report today that was released today by the committee. They say, quote, the committee notes that multiple Republican members of Congress, including Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, likely have material facts regarding President Trump's plans to overturn the election. They're pointing DOJ as to who they should subpoena in Congress. The investigators refer Congressman Scott Perry and Congressman Jim Jordan and Congressman Andy Biggs and also House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy to the Ethics Committee for their having refused to comply with lawful subpoenas from the investigation. That should be a fun point of reference when those Republicans take over Congress in January and turn Congress into a subpoena fountain for members of the Biden administration. I mean, if they want to, the Biden White House will be able to turn around and say, really? We have to comply with your subpoenas about President Biden's grandsons, dogs, veterinarians, landlords, TikTok posts? When you yourself, Congressman, are under Ethics Committee investigation for blowing off congressional subpoenas about an attack on the U.S. Capitol? I mean, we will see how that all pans out. But the committee did make 4 Ethics Committee recommendations on that front for 4 relatively senior members of Congress on the Republican side. The investigators also, though, suggested that DOJ can secure testimony from those Republican members of Congress, testimony that might produce sufficient evidence to charge Trump not only with the crimes they're recommending he be charged with, but maybe even with 2 additional crimes. Specifically, the report released by investigators today said there are 2 additional felonies that DOJ should consider when looking at Trump. They say they should also consider seditious conspiracy and conspiracy to prevent an officer of the United States from discharging his or her duties. The investigators say DOJ, through its investigative tools that exceed those of the committee, may have evidence sufficient to prosecute President Trump under those 2 additional statutes. The investigators helpfully suggest that Trump's former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, may, quote, have specific evidence relevant to such charges. So again, the investigators here are making specific criminal referrals that the Justice Department should bring 4 different felony charges against Donald Trump. They are suggesting that 2 additional felony charges may be warranted, and they are telling the Justice Department which Republican members of Congress and which Trump advisors should be questioned in order to get the evidence necessary to bring those charges.